Hi folks, this is Dominic. You're listening to Light in the Dark, and this is part 2 of the Reset multi-video. So today's topic for part 2 will be actually a multi-topic. It'll be a dual topic, 2 topics, and it'll be the AI control system, and the other topic will be the loss of life skills, because I think that these two things go hand in hand, and they are a simultaneous thing that is being used against the people. The loss of life skills is being used to push people further and further into the AI control system, the whole artificial intelligence system, the whole 5G smart grid system, as well as social crediting. And the whole AI system is also being used to further reduce the life skills. So they just kind of go hand in hand. So the aspect of the AI, and how and the 5G and the smart grid and the social crediting and everything, and how this goes hand in hand with the reset. There's a lot of old warnings on ancient tablets and cave carvings and things like that where you would see all these drawings of these sigils, inside on these on these stone tablets and on these in these caves, where there would be these carvings and drawings warning people of these sigils, and it was basically, the way I see it is, it was a warning of when you see these sigils coming into practice in society, that you're headed towards basically a reset. Things are about to become very extreme, and the society is basically headed towards its end for that civilization, for that cycle. That's the way I see it, because you look at these old sigils, that they warn us about, and people think they're, these things that you draw in these circles and you summon these demons, and Max Egan went really well into this, in his video Giving Life to Lucifer, where he basically described how these sigils look exactly like the hardware for computers. It looks like the hardware and the software for computers and smartphones and things like that. And how do we know that the past civilizations, the people of these past civilizations, weren't experiencing the same things themselves, where they were being led into these technocratic technocracy realities where their societies were essentially being enslaved through a technocracy, a centralized control structure that was taking away their rights and freedoms, and using technologies, whether they were the exact same or similar or even very different to the technology that we have today. They were using these technologies to further enslave their people and basically reduce their life skills and get them into a situation where they could basically reset everything. Wipe out massive amounts of people, have them under complete and total control during the phase of the reset, so that the people wouldn't really have the ability to prep and be ready for what's coming. It's a possibility. I'm not saying that is the case, but it's something to consider. And you look at all the warnings with these sigils and the scrawling mirrors, every time you open up your phone, essentially what that is a scrawling mirror. You're opening it up, it's this black screen, and then you turn it on and it gives light. It's the Lucifer, the light bearer. That's what Lucifer means. Lucifer means light bearer. Well, what is your phone? And light is information, right? Really, when you think about it. The esoteric meaning of the word light means information, because when you put light on something, suddenly, you have access to information of what you are seeing, right? Like, you go into a dark room and you turn on the light, and then you can see what's around you, and essentially what it is you're taking in information. You're processing what your surroundings are, And so when you open up your phone, it opens up this light, but it also, there's there's data, there's information. You can surf the web and look things up, and you know look up information, look up fun facts, look up all these things, discover all these things, all these places, look up all this information about everything. And essentially, when you think about it in an esoteric philosophical standpoint, what the phone is it is information. It is the light bearer. It is Lucifer, essentially. It is, and Lucifer again means the light bearer. But it's like, as a society, as a civilization, people become more and more drawn towards having all this knowledge, having all this information about things. Like, we got to know how old a tree is, and you got to cut it down, and essentially what you're doing is you're counting the rings of the stump of the tree, but you killed the tree. It's like you're giving up just enjoying what is and just being in harmony with what is, to have this ever lasting search for endless knowledge, endless, and at what point does it become destructive, to always need to know things that essentially, it's like, you're not, there's an old saying, you're not enjoying the shade of the tree if you're cutting it down to know how old the tree is. What's more important, knowing how old the tree is by cutting it down and destroying it and counting the rings, or enjoying the shade of the tree? So it's this never-ending search for knowledge, and through the technology and the search for knowledge, it seems like we lead ourselves more and more into this step towards automation and the AI and the control of the AI, right? And it seems like as we have this search for knowledge, we're giving up our humanity, we're giving up our own interface with reality. As automation becomes more and more a thing, we get replaced in factories and companies of being the laborers and the workers and having these jobs and things, and it becomes more and more of a AI, automated, robotic reality where the machines run everything. And it seems like as society leads more and more into that, human beings become more and more obsolete and phased out. And it kind of leads to the destruction of the society when that starts to happen. And that's what we're seeing today. Human beings are being more and more phased out of industry, and the economy. There's no point in hiring skilled workers when you can have machines do the work much faster, much more efficiently. And there will be an immediate large cost for paying for the machines, but then it'll pay itself back, where the only cost is maintaining the machines, making sure that they still run efficiently, and paying the power bill to keep the machines running. Whereas you don't have to pay a wage anymore to the workers, and you can have one machine do the amount of work that like 5 to 10 workers could do, right, and get it done faster. So as automation, as our search for knowledge and efficiency and everything becomes more and more, our human interaction becomes phased out and seen as obsolete. And what happens is, through the technology, through the search of knowledge, through the information and everything, through the tech, it seems like we as human beings are becoming further and further reduced in our life skills. A lot of people see the tech that is being given to us as conveniences. They see their smartphones as these little computers that they carry around with them, and they have all these apps, and they can do all these things with their phones, and it's so convenient. If I need to find somewhere, and I don't know my way, I don't know the directions to get to a certain place or travel to a certain state, I can just flip on my Google Maps and it'll tell me where to go. or if I can do all my banking and financing online and it'll do the mathematics and processing for me. If I want to look up how to do something, I don't have to actually go to a library and research through books or try through trial and error, just doing it hands-on myself and learning myself, how to do it through making mistakes and learning from my mistakes. I can just YouTube how to do it, or I can Google how to do it. And sure, in some ways this is good, it is beneficial, but in a lot of ways it's taking away our ability to critically think and to use common scientific methodology and go through trial and error processes and learn how to do things ourselves. It's just kind of like everything is being done for us through the tech, and the tech really, it's taken away so many of our life skills, so as society in general. The society that we have, you don't have to learn how to do anything yourself. You get a job, you earn this paycheck, and essentially you use the money from that paycheck to pay for your whole life. You use the money to pay a rent or a mortgage at a house. You don't have to learn how to build a house yourself, right? You don't have to learn how to build the foundation, build the frame, do the roofing, build your house yourself. You don't have to learn how to grow a garden. You can just go to the grocery store and buy your food. You don't have to learn how to plant your food yourself. You don't have to learn how to hunt or fish or trap, right? You don't have to get your own food. You just work this job and get this money and, pay for your food, pay for your survival that the system provides for you, by giving up your freedoms, by giving up your time and going and working some job. And this really ties in with the AI, because the whole loss of life skills, the whole society that we have, where everything is so compartmentalized and everybody just goes and learns one job, one skill, one trade, and they're only learning one life skill, and in many cases they're only learning one aspect of one life skill. They're only learning, as a construction worker, you're either learning just how to build roads, or you're learning just how to lay down the foundation for houses, or you're learning just how to do the roofing for a house, or just how to do the carpentry work for a house. Or if you're a mechanic, you only know how to diagnose problems with the motor, and you only know how to replace parts that need replaced, right? You don't know how to actually manufacture and build the panels and the frame. And there's a lot of specialist mechanics, where you only know how to do the suspension or the brakes, or you only know how to do the motor repair work. You only know how to replace parts for the motor. You're not really learning how to do everything in one field. And again, I keep bringing up Max Igan, but he's so on point with so many of these philosophical aspects of what's going on with society. He's talked very deeply about how we are losing our life skills and we are being compartmentalized into learning only one aspect of one life skill. How you'll have a mechanic that doesn't know how to build a house. You'll have a carpenter who knows how to build a house but doesn't know how to grow a garden or do permaculture. You'll have someone who knows how to grow a garden or do permaculture, but they don't know how to blacksmith. You'll have a blacksmith, but they don't know how to pull metal out of the ground, right? You'll have someone who knows how to pull metal out of the ground, but they don't know how to garden. They don't know how to build a house. You'll have someone who can blacksmith and pull metal out of the ground, but they don't know how. They're not very proficient in hunting or fishing, or in construction work or mechanic work, right? So everything is so compartmentalized. And also what we've seen in society is the jobs have become less and less about trade work and more of the machines are doing the trade work for us, especially with manufacturing. People aren't manufacturing things as much the way that they used to. They're operating machines, essentially, is what they're doing. They run these CNC machines, or these other types of machines, to basically manufacture the things for them, and their job is just to run the machines. So they're not really knowing how to produce things. And where I was going was, more and more of the jobs, though, are becoming less and less trade work. You're seeing more and more office jobs, more and more sales jobs, more and more, you'll see all these jobs on these job sites where they're like, we're looking for, Verizon Wireless sales associates, or looking for people to work in the malls at, these little shops and stuff, where they're essentially, working at a cash register. Like, people are becoming more and more used to using the tech at their jobs, and becoming more and more used to using the tech for their everyday interface with the real world, where they're not really learning how to do these things in the real world themselves. They're essentially, using the tech to get all these things done for them. They're using the tech to find their way around places, the Google Maps and stuff, rather than just simply, trying to travel and look at the street signs and everything, and the interstate signs, and find their ways around places themselves, or even just using a old paper map. They're not doing these things anymore. They're using Google Maps. And the list goes on and on. But you just really got to think about this, and think about how our brains are becoming atrophied in as much as knowing and remembering and having that repetitious experience of doing basic things ourselves. A lot of people don't know how to cook meals from scratch anymore. They're buying recipe boxes and stuff, where they just, or TV dinners or whatever, where they just throw it in the oven and it's already there for them. So we're seeing this massive loss of life skills. And what it's doing is it's getting us into a situation where we are more and more willing to accept the tech, because we are becoming more and more dependent upon the tech. And therefore, there's going to be less and less of a pushback from the AI. People are more and more accepting of the AI. I found that people in my personal life who I never thought would be like people who would end up buying smart watches and end up, thinking like self-driving cars would be a good thing, and all this stuff, are actually like, talking to them recently, they're like, yeah, no, I think that's a great thing. I think that's cool that they're coming out with self-driving cars. And I'll say to them, oh yeah, because we were never, capable of driving ourselves from point A to point B. It's such a good thing that we have a car driving for us, an automated car, a self-driving car, because that's not creepy or weird. You can't just get in a car and decide where you're going. You have to type in the location on the car. And how do you know, like, the people in control of the tech aren't using this for their benefit? How do you know the car's not going to take you where the people in control of this world want you to go? It sounds far-fetched, but it's not. It's not that hard to imagine that we're not going to be able to do things ourselves anymore very soon, more so than we're already incapable of doing ourselves, and how we're being led into this AI system, And I want to talk now more about where it's all going, where the loss of life skills is going, and where the tech is going. You look at China and what China is already doing with all this tech. They have the whole 5G system up and going. They have the whole AI system going. They have a digital, universal currency in China. They pretty much phased out cash. You look at what they're doing in the schools. They And before I get into that, they also have social crediting full blown. And I want to get into social crediting in a bit. But back to the schools. In the schools, you're seeing these kids essentially wear these smart devices around their heads that are shaped like halos. And what they do is they monitor and track um, the level of attention that kids are giving to their teachers. It's capable of monitoring how much attention and focus is going on within the neurons in the brains of the children. It can track their levels of attention, if they're not paying attention in class or if they are. And that's creepy. Like, kids will have no ability of ever just daydreaming and stuff like that. And people have been so programmed into thinking, oh, how dare kids want to daydream in class. It's like, look at the bullshit they're teaching kids in school. They're not teaching kids how to think for themselves. They're teaching kids what to think. They're teaching kids obedience and subservience. And of course kids are going to want to daydream and think about incredible things with their own imagination and own creativity. They're not going to want to listen to the mundane topics and subjects that they're being forced to learn. And it's essentially creating this human farming, to a larger extent than what we already have, where people will have no ability to be an individual. People will have no ability to think what they want. This brings about the whole thought police system to a whole new level and degree. Where the AI and the social crediting is basically becoming such an extreme reality. It's unavoidable to think about and talk about. We have to start talking about this stuff because the kids are being led into this, where they're being scored and monitored based on how much attention they're giving in their class at every given moment, and they have these devices around their heads that monitor how much attention and focus they're giving to their teachers during class, and it's being reported back to the parents and stuff and to the teachers and the principals, and they're being scored based on how much attention they're giving. This sounds a lot like the social crediting they're trying to give, where based on the things you talk about and the things you post, and pretty soon with these halos, maybe we'll be forced as adults to wear them at all times so they can monitor what we're thinking about, and your social crediting score will be based on not only what you talk about and what you post online, but it'll be what you're thinking, And if you're thinking a bad thought that the government doesn't want you to think, like, oh, God forbid, you're thinking, man, I'm tired of this system, I'm tired of this society, I wish the world was different. Oh, your social credit point just got deducted because, you were thinking a bad thought, you were questioning what the system is doing. How dare you? You gotta have unquestioning devotion towards the system and towards your controllers. You can't question them. You can't think for yourself. You have to think what they want you to think. This is the reality we're being led into. And if you don't think this is reality, it's already one in China. This isn't some theory. This is already being put into practice in China. And a lot of the big bankers and a lot of the big controllers, like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and George Soros and Bill Gates, they're all open about how much they love the Chinese model, and they want the rest of the world to adopt the Chinese model and, have the social crediting and have the digital currency and have the facial recognition and have all the 5G and, implement the same things they're doing in the workforce and the same things they are doing to the kids in the school system and how they run the educational system in China. They say that they want this to be adopted into the West and the rest of the world. They don't like the way that the West operates, and they want the West to follow suit more like China. Please try and justify that type of mentality, and explain how that can be a good thing and how that can be a positive future for all of us. Because to me, it sounds like the ultimate lockdown. It sounds like ultimate control. And some people are looking at this, and some people are aware of this, and some people are aware of the whole AI system, but they're not really looking at the bigger picture. They're not really, they're paying attention to 5G and how 5G has all these, physically harmful effects, and how the 60 gigahertz can cause serious health problems in people, and how it's toxic electromagnetic radiation. A lot of them are even looking at social crediting and the whole social credit score and the whole thought policing, and they're looking at what the tech is being used for in the educational system in China, and how essentially we're being led into this AI full-blown human farming cattle system where we're essentially just barcodes and cattle, and we'll be given these like tags basically, and everything. And they're looking at how the whole AI system is taking so much away from us and so much of our ability to interact with the real world, and how we're going to be tracked and monitored in every aspect, and the digital currency and everything. But if you look at this from an even bigger perspective and take into account the past civilizations that have come and gone. And sorry, I'm going to smoke a cigarette like I always do in my videos because I am a smoker, so please be offended. But anyway, essentially what we're seeing is, if you look at this in a bigger sense, the fact that civilizations have come and gone, the fact that it seems like the past civilizations have been destroyed somehow, whether it's natural, or whether it was caused by a controlling class. There's been these cyclic events where societies have come and gone. And you tie this in and you look at how all these warnings about these sigils and these devices, from past civilizations, warning us about this from cave drawings and carvings and things like that, saying when you see these sigils and you see these scrolling mirrors, which essentially are tablets and phones, when you really think about it, when you see these things getting put into use into society, you're headed towards another reset. You're headed towards the end of the cycle. Things are going to get really bad, and society is not in a good spot. It's towards its end point, right? And you look at all the signs that are showing us that our current society is about to end. The whole economy falling apart, the whole social structure falling apart, the loss of life skills, the all the warnings of the sigils and things, and how these devices are being put into use right now. You look at all these things and you can see that we're headed towards another end of the cycle, right? It looks like the society that we have is not going to last much longer. Like, it's towards its end point. And you look at the AI, you look at the loss of life skills, and how society has essentially been pushed in a certain direction. How people are being pushed out of the rural areas where they're no longer farming and living off the land and being in touch with nature and knowing how to do things themselves. They're living in these compact cities, which are essentially concrete jungles. It's all about survival, and you're completely dependent on the system for your survival in these cities, and there's nothing around you to survive with. There's no forest or vegetation, there's no food growing in the forest because there are no forests around you in the cities. It's all buildings and roads and streets, and it's just, there's no way to survive in these cities. And the bulk of society, the bulk of people are living in these cities. And more people, as the years go by, are being pushed out of the rural areas and being pushed into the city areas. And you look at how it seems like the economy is falling apart. Certainly right now with this whole lockdown and everything, the food supply chain is falling apart. The AI is creeping in more and more. The control grid is creeping in more and more, and we're losing more and more life skills. And if you really think about it, we're being set up. Really, what we're being set up for is mass death, mass famine, mass dependency upon the system. And I'm going to get more and more into the famine and the economic collapse and everything in the other parts. I just wanted to brush on that really quick again to tie that in with this whole AI system and the whole loss of life skills, because what we're seeing is a setup. We're seeing the bulk of humanity being set up for mass extermination, or mass depopulation. I wouldn't say extermination, but because they want a percentage of the population that they can throw into the smart cities. They want the survivors that they can throw into these smart cities so they can play their little game to the next level, of having this complete control grid slavery system where we're all controlled by the AI. We're all forced to use the 5G. We're all forced to use the digital currency. And the 5G can essentially be used as active denial. You look at 5G and what it's capable of. And now to get more into the tech and describe the future that we are facing, the reality that we are heading into through this AI control grid system, and how the loss of life skills has aided us in being led into this direction. Well, the loss of life skills has led us into this direction where now we're going to accept the control grid, accept the 5G system, because we don't have the ability to really live outside of it. So we're just going to let them lead us where they're leading us. And what they want to lead us into is this smart prison, is these smart cities where the survivors of the reset will be thrown into. And essentially, you look at 5G, look at what 5G is. It's a weapons system. It's electromagnetic millimeter waves, which was a patent by DARPA used in the military for active denial and microwave cannons. And all you have to do is look at the DARPA patents. It's not a conspiracy theory, folks. They're quite open about what they do and what they're planning, Just look at the DARPA patents. Look at the patents on 5G and what it was used for. And mind control. There was a document put out about what they did in Iraq, to the Iraqi soldiers, how when we were invading there, we used the 5G tech essentially to do the voice of God technology, where we essentially put thoughts into the minds of the Iraqi soldiers, basically the voice of God telling them to drop their weapons and walk into heaven, essentially. And what they did was they dropped their firearms and they walked out into the battlefield and they were just sprayed down by, the U.S. troops. So they have the ability to tamper with people's thoughts and emotions and behaviors, and you really have to think about that and what that is going to be used for, with the people and with the next societies that come out. I really want people to think about what is coming, with this whole 5G system, the whole digital currency, and how we are being led into a situation where essentially, we won't have cash anymore. We won't be able to use physical money, and the only way we'll be able to buy and sell is if we accept the mark of the beast, and we'll only be able to do it through the digital currency, and they'll be able to track every single thing you buy, every single thing you sell. You'll have to have government permission to sell. You'll have to open up a business, and it'll have to be government approved. You'll have to use the digital currency, and everything that you sell will have to be approved. And if you speak out against what the government doesn't want, and this is where social crediting comes in, your social credit points will be reduced and taken away, and essentially you won't be able to buy if you lose too many social credit points, because through the digital currency they'll be able to just freeze your accounts based on your social credit score. So the reality that we're being led into is 100% compliance to the system, where if you don't comply, you won't be able to survive. You won't be able to buy and sell. You won't be able to trade. You won't be able to have access to essential services. You'll just simply be blocked out of essential services based on your social credit points. They're already doing this in China, where if you have a low social credit score, you can't rent. You can't fly on airplanes. You can't travel to certain areas. You can't go into certain grocery stores. And so what they do is they force you into a life of crime, where essentially you're squeezed out of the system, and all you can do is resort to crime in order to survive, in order to have access to food. And they can just throw you in the smart prison and do whatever they want with you. And this is the type of reality we're being led into. This is what's going to play hand in hand with the other side of this reset, what they want to implement on the other side. So I'm going to leave it there with that. I have to go into work. I can't really think of too much more to add to it. I would have liked to add a little more, but time is not really on my side. I'm pretty busy, and I really want to just get this thing out for people. So, in other videos, I might touch more and more on social crediting and the AI, but I think you can kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. Please look into your own information, use your own resources to research this yourself. There's incredible people out there who have been touching on this. I would certainly look into David Icke's work on AI and social crediting. I would absolutely look into Max Egan's work on AI and social crediting and 5G. Look into Giving Life to Lucifer by Max Egan. If his video is taken down, I'm sure there's mirrored versions of it on YouTube. You can find it on BitChute. Look up many of his videos on social crediting, on 5G. A lot of those videos where he goes heavily in depth on them are around 2016 to about 2018. So you'll have to scroll back through his channel and find some of his older podcasts and videos. He's touched on it quite recently as well, but I would definitely suggest going back to some of his videos from 2016 and working your way up to present time. So I'm going to leave it there. Part 3 will come out soon, and please take care.